I recently heard a story told by the current ESPN college basketball analyst Jason Williams. Jason had an incredible college basketball career at Duke University. He was a national superstar. He went on to play pro ball with the Chicago Bulls. He was telling this story when the Los Angeles Lakers came to Chicago to play a game one evening that the Lakers came in and just beat the Bulls. I mean, they beat them like a drum. Jason played a terrible game. His shooting percentage was low. The opponent was scoring point after point on his defense. He just played awful defense that evening. And he was so dejected after he walked off the court that he wanted to come back and work on some of his weaknesses that evening. Well, the arena was empty. There was no coaches, players, fans around. About 10 or 15 minutes into his workout, he heard basketballs bouncing on the opposite side of the court. And he looked down, and it was one of the players from the opposing team on the Los Angeles Lakers that had won that evening, that he too came in to work on his skills and to work on maybe some weaknesses that he saw in the game that he had won. And the player was Kobe Bryant. Well, Jason worked for about 30 minutes. He had this strenuous workout after this long, enduring game. Well, Kobe was working out just as hard. So you got these two guys in this empty arena, and there was almost sort of like a practice workout competition that was taking place. And the story goes, as they practiced for about an hour and a half, Jason got so frustrated that Kobe was trying to work out harder than Jason. He went to Kobe and asked him. He really didn't know Kobe that well. It was the first close conversation they had ever had. And Jason asked Kobe this question: "You won this evening. Why are you in here working on your game harder than I am? Or, if not, this causing this practice competition taking place?" And Kobe said, "Well, we won tonight, but we haven't won tomorrow night. Jason, I'm not going to let you beat me in a game, and I'm sure not going to let my opponent beat me in my workout." When we hear of the Kobe talk, or what I've heard in the Kobe talk, there's one common word that people attribute to Kobe's character, and that was the word commitment. We take it for granted that word commitment actually means the same to all of us, but I can assure you that it doesn't. So if our most honored commitments aren't kept, maybe we need to ask the question, well, why don't we really commit, and why don't we keep our commitments? The difficulty in making promises is so many times that we're focused on the outcomes, and we sort of ignore the process that it takes or that it requires in order to get the best outcomes that we want. Imagine one of the students here at the school committing to make straight A's during their school year and never devoting themselves to homework. Well, think about a marriage. Can you imagine a marriage committing to total fidelity to one another and becoming complacent or apathetic about their faithfulness? Last week's victories, and I think maybe this is what Kobe teaches us, that last week's victories don't always guarantee a victory tomorrow for the next week. There are still things to take place. There's still spiritual growth in our life when we have losses spiritually, when we have losses with our spouse. There are things of growth and things spiritually that we can still work on. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you had a loss with your spouse or in your spiritual life that you didn't go and say, hey, these are some lessons to learn. I'll go work on my character. I'll go work on some things spiritually or maybe in my relationship. Well, when's the last time that you've actually had a win with your spouse or a win with your marriage, a win spiritually, and you still went and you got back out on the court that evening and said, there are even lessons to be learned in our victories, maybe some spiritual lessons or lessons with our integrity or our character, and still took the time to work on those things. There is one common thing about wins and losses, but that both involve an outcome. Even though outcomes are sort of a small snapshot or a moment in time, these moments can still be defining moments that can actually change the trajectory. Even if you had a win one night, maybe Kobe was expecting to go on a win streak, or maybe even after a loss one day. These are great moments, defining moments in time that we can change the trajectory, and we go on a win streak for weeks or months. If you've had a recent loss, if you've had a recent win in a relationship or in your marriage or maybe even spiritual life, you might, if you take advantage of these defining moments, you may just be on the brink of a great win streak. I love what the great coach John Wooden, UCLA Bruins, in 12 seasons, he won 10 national championships. He's maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest, college basketball coach there was, and he always blended the characters of his players along with the skills and the principles that he taught on the basketball court as well. But the great coach John Wooden said, "You can choose to commit to outcomes or commit to the process that will determine your best outcome. If we learn to commit fully to the process, then the outcomes will be what they should be. But if we commit merely to the outcome and ignore the process, we've sabotaged both." I look at the Word and how we can apply the Word of God to this, and I think of coaching. We're talking about sports right now and talking about life and how can we, apply to the process that we've been given to us in life. And when I think about wins and losses, and both not only involve outcomes, but they also involve testing. And when it comes to testing, I think there's a great coach. I know he was called the Apostle Paul, but now I'm going to call him Coach Paul. In Philippians chapter 1, Coach Paul tells us, "For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things." Now think about this next part when it comes to not only the commitments that we make, not only does it involve the outcomes, but also the process to get to those best outcomes. He says, "Then as your endurance grows even stronger, will you release perfection into every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking." My friends, there will be wins, there will be losses, but between the wins and losses, there's still practicing to be done.